originally trying to make TikTok content, trying to like, I did a whole series of like, hey, if you like this about Star Wars, this is why you might like the Wheel of Time. So I don't know if that really worked out for a lot of people, but I thought it was
you actually got me to check it out, and which I am interested in it. I have not continued because of it's wild of being a geek right now, but it's definitely high on my list to continue.
There's lots of stuff to check out right now, for sure. Yeah, I can't fault anybody for not wanting to dive into a 14-book series. There's a lot of them. The audiobooks are a nice segue if you're into narration. That's a good way to get into it too.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Especially
if I'm going through the Stormlight archive right now.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I'm thinking Wheel of Time after that. Maybe, depends on how long it takes me to get through this, because I also need to read Dune, but like I want to wait until the movies, at least what's going to be in movie form, is finished, so that I don't have. So my method is, you watch the show first or the movie, then you read the book, because the book is always better. Because the book
is always better because books are better.
Yeah, you get inner monologue and stuff. Like, listen, my brain is more powerful than any CG in the world, right? It's like I'm actually there. It's crazy. So, so you watch a show, and you're like, I enjoyed this, and then you watch a movie, and you're like, I enjoyed that even, or you read it,
read the book, and you enjoy it even more. Yeah, it's hard to go the other way. I've kind of been training myself since I was a teenager to try to go the other way, because I did react unfavorably to certain scenes in the Lord of the Rings. Like
we're gonna clip just the first part though.
Well, so I cut. I shouted what the fuck in a sorry, are we on PG-13 here or anything like that?
No, we're good.
Yeah, we're fine.
Yeah, no, I shouted, like, I didn't shout, but I said what the fuck pretty loud when Aragorn draws his sword. In the first time Aragorn draws his sword and it's not broken, and I was like, what the fuck? In the theater on opening night, just rude, really, right? Like, looking back on it, I'm like, okay, they're going to change stuff, and I need to have a better reaction than that when they change stuff. So I've been kind of mentally prepping myself ever since to have a better reaction to The Wheel of Time, which became my new favorite books after the Lord of the Rings. So the interesting thing with the Star Wars novels, though, is they're not like source material, so to speak. They're like you said, supplemental. There's a lot of books that come after, but originally, Star Wars was first and foremost a movie, and now we've got all these shows and animated, and there's always been a lot of books backing it up. But I feel like, all discussions about like what's canon and what's legends now aside, like the books have always going to take a slight backseat to whatever's on screen, just because it's Star Wars. Star Wars is always going to be an on-screen experience first, for me at least. And then there's a lot of stuff out there that's, like you said, it's even better. It gets better if you read the books, but I can't expect the books or the movies to follow the books.
Yeah, exactly. So that's always been like a wishy-washy thing about how people understand the continuity of Star Wars. It's actually gotten a lot better with the Disney purchase, with the establishment of the story group, who are, everything that is released under Disney, unless expressly said, is canon. That's including the books and the expanded universe of the comics and the books. The problem is that there is a hierarchy of canonicity. And so obviously being depicted on screen is the most canonicity you can get.
Do they still have that? I know with old expanded universe content, they used to have like G canon, S canon, N canon. Non-canon was a canon type.
It was the old way of depicting the different canons that existed.
The old, so that was Leland Chee's reference. Like, like imagine putting all of the information into a database. Those were his reference flags so that you could tell what is part of what, right? That was never it's not a that was never a true hierarchy in that sense. Those were different canons, which is why they had different canon designations. But yes, so now everything is the same level of canon. However, if there is a conflict, then the on-screen representation supersedes it. Best example of that, Force Awakens, right? They gave it to, I think that was Alan Dean Foster who wrote the novelization. They gave it to him while they were still making the movie. So at the very end of the movie, at the end of the story, Rey meets Poe. At the end of the movie, she doesn't. So which is which? Well, then she didn't meet. Then they say, okay, she didn't actually meet him at the end of the story.
Yeah, it's tough too because with novelizations, especially, it's like the release schedule is so tight. Like there can be, you got to write a novel for a movie you haven't seen yet because it hasn't been released yet. And you're getting notes, and they might be still editing the movie. There's scenes that are going to end up cut by the time it gets to the screen. I can only imagine the continuity nightmare of trying to make that fit.
Yeah, definitely.
Connor says, I'm missing out on the blue t-shirt. I didn't get the memo.
We didn't plan this, I promise.
Yeah, but just do it. Oh, it's a Nike shirt.
Mine's actually a Paramount. So I mean,
mine's my favorite.
That's not
That's not canon.
on topic.
Hello.
Also, shout out to Obi-Shan in the chat. Obi-Shan couldn't make it on today, but we'll definitely get you on soon, buddy.
Absolutely. I said that in a British accent. I don't know why you wanted me to. Unless you want me to do the rest of the episode in a British accent, I can. I might offend a few people across the pond, but
I was like, yeah. Sometimes British accents. Well, I can't do any accents. I'm terrible at it.
Let's see here. Quinn Gelhouse. I'm gonna say Gelhouse. That would be a really, really weird house to visit. Why have I not really heard anything about the canon Heir to the Jedi book? I was looking at a list of canon books and saw it on there and didn't recognize it. Is it bad or something of the sort?
It's terrible. I hate that book so much. Oh my god. So there's one thing that they have struggled with in book form, and that's Luke Skywalker. I will say I did really enjoy Shadows of the Sith, and that book is a Luke Lando like romp where they go around the galaxy, they're drinking their hot cocoa and stuff.
There's a lot of that.
But yeah, there's two. There's it's Heir to the Jedi and Weapon of the Jedi, and I hate both of those books. They also have the Legends of Luke Skywalker, which is an anthology book. Basically, it's a bunch of kids. Honestly, I think these kids are being sold into slavery and being brought to Canto Bight. But in the meantime, they're telling stories of the legend of Luke Skywalker, and each one is telling a different story that they've heard about him. So it's an interesting book. Some of them are really cool stories. Some of them are really odd and off-putting. One of them is about is the fact that Luke never actually did anything, but there's like a little flea like alien that's on his head controlling him like Ratatouille, and that's what did everything. That's one of them. Another one is a whole conspiracy book about how like his name is actually Luke Clodplotter, and the Empire never actually had a Death Star. That was all propaganda. But these rebels figured out that it was propaganda, so they made counter propaganda saying it was destroyed. So then the Empire couldn't just say it was back because then they'd have to prove it, and they couldn't. And that's why there's two different explosions. They're like that's why there's the explosion of the Death Star was filmed, and it looks different. And that's their joke on the special edition version.
Oh, the special edition, the different explosion, yeah, with the ring.
That's proof that it's propaganda, and you're like, Okay, I see what you're doing. It's weird
Wow.
though.
I always kind of liked stuff like that though, because it fits in the spirit of legends. Like these are these are supposed to be space fairy tales, right? I mean, it's a long time ago in a galaxy far, far, once upon a time. So like all of you can almost kind of swing all of the legends material under that umbrella of like, okay, well, this is just what some people say in universe. They tell these stories that might not be 100% accurate, but yeah, this is one of the legends of Luke Skywalker. Maybe it didn't happen exactly that way, but that's how legends work, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And those two books were actually written based off of the old EU continuity, but it just so happened to reach a cutoff in the Disney buyout that they were like, they looked at it and like, it doesn't severely contradict anything that we would consider the new canon, so I guess it's canon.
So Luke did have a flea on his head controlling him at one point?
Yes.
Or were there people under that impression? That's kind of like it gets back to what sorry, what?
There's a book called Legends of Luke Skywalker where it is it's a canon novel that people are spreading these legends, right?
Oh, okay.
So it's not that the stories are canon, but it's canon that there people are like, oh, did you hear about Luke Skywalker and he's surfing on the X-wing and like,
right. So the existence of the stories is canon.
Canon.
Yeah, I like that. I like stuff like that when they kind of just fold it all together.
Yeah, I mean, one of them was Luke jumping from Star Destroyer to Star Destroyer, ripping them out of the sky, and it was like, that's kind of badass. I've seen I watched Vision season 1. I remember what that looks like.
It's a great way to canonize
with a lightsaber.
It's a great way to canonize fan fiction. Like you go on like AO3 and you pick the most ridiculous stuff and you make it a legend told in canon.
Yeah, I think it works. I like it.
Like if there's a supposed legend that's told about Darth Vader having a secret apprentice, but canonically he doesn't, but there are people out there tell that story. Connor says, do a Geordie, and then I won't say no. I gone done tune by sausage roll. That's my best Geordie. And that's all I know how to speak in Geordie. I gone done tune. Ah, shit, no.
Really? That sounded more like Florida Panhandle to me. I gone down there and give me a biscuit.
Connor's the one that taught me going downtown is Gandunton. Doontun. Gandunton. There, I fixed it. I Gandunton. Sausage roll.
Yes. Oh, but we have a if you want to hit record, we can do a little thing. So we like to make little short videos because while we're all here, why not? So yeah, hit record and I'll introduce an idea and we'll chat for a moment.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So, question for everyone, Star Wars fans, anyone watching this video, and especially, Element and Mike here. I'm curious, have fans gotten more entitled in the past few years? Does it not feel like instead of watching content for what it is, for the story being told, they're watching it expecting a specific story to be told, and gauging their enjoyment off of how strictly we adhere to the story they imagine being told? Is that a change? Has this always been the case? What do you guys think?
I feel like that has always happened. I always go back to my initial gripes with the Revenge of the Sith were based on YouTube speculation that didn't pan out. There was some stuff about like his outfit. I forget who made it, but somebody did this big video breakdown of how we were going to see an early version of his helmet and the suit, and how we're going to see all these injuries that you can see, and we'll see like a slow build up towards the Darth Vader look that we know from A New Hope. And then what do they do at the end of Revenge of the Sith? You know, we put him straight into the Vader suit that we know from A New Hope. And I was just like, what? Like, how could they do that? There's 20 years in between the movies. Of course his outfit's going to change or whatever. And so, I mean, I'm guilty of that. You know, I had an idea in my head that's like, oh, that sounds cool. And it wasn't my idea even. It was just somebody put it up on the video. So like, you know, we're part of the problem in that sense, you know, just like getting up here and speculating and talking about what's going to come next. But I've always tried to take the approach that, you know, okay, here's what I think might happen, but if it doesn't, you know, it's still okay. And I'll go on and, you know, I tried to bring it to a healthy place of like, well, so here's, even though I thought this might happen, I'm actually really stoked about how this happened. You know, I try to put a balance in there of what I would like to see versus what we actually get, and that's still good. Just because it's not what I expected, it doesn't mean it's not good. If anything, you know, the fact that I couldn't predict it is fun, because so much TV and movies are just predictable now. If you can't predict something, they keep you guessing somehow. I feel like that's a good thing.
Yeah, something I've always said is like, you know, if you grab a cup and take a swig, and it's Sprite, if you were expecting water, you're gonna spit it out of your mouth. Sprite could be your favorite soda. If you weren't expecting it, you're gonna spit it out, and we can fall into that trap definitely. So I like that.
I don't know if I like that analogy, because if I tasted Sprite instead of water, I'd probably go,
hey, nice. This is good water.
You know, it's like a small secret treat. You know, if I expected water and tasted like, I don't know,
gin,
Los Angeles tap water, I'd be like, God, that's not what I wanted.
It's like booty tea.
But in terms of like the question, you know, I've come to this realization quite recently, and we've talked about it a couple of times, Choco, you and I, about those blessed with the information are also cursed with it. Because if we have all of the information in the world and go into a show with that baggage, we are then expecting certain things to happen, certain connections to be made, and we even say, oh, if you should watch Rebels if you're going to watch Ahsoka. But when Ahsoka came out, there was only characters from Rebels. There wasn't really any kind of connection that you were required to have. And so a lot of people thought you needed to do homework to watch these shows, but it's us that have done the homework that were making those proclamations, right? Like I said, my brother watched it. He hasn't watched Clone Wars. He hasn't watched Rebels. He's just watched the saga films. He watched Ahsoka. He was like, that was great. And he didn't even know who Ahsoka was. So like a lot of people who kind of come in with the, and I'll say it here, as I said it in my previous video, the Dunning-Kruger effect, with the knowledge that they think they know, but not enough to know when they're wrong, will start to attach certain criteria and rules. Oh, I broke hyperspace rules, whatever. Rules and kind of boundaries to the medium that will then make it bad because it did not adhere to those rules. And we've seen it in the ACOLYTE, where people were like, Ki-Adi-Mundi shouldn't be here, based on the fact that of what I know or have seen from a YouTube video, because I know nobody read the Star Wars Insider with his Legends birthday, you know. And this whole mess about the vergences in the Force and how Anakin is supposed to be the only one is yet another proof that people thought they know what they were talking about, but they didn't. And so again, you're blessed and you're cursed with information, and it is a problem that we've seen in the fandom for sure for a long time. You know, this show needs to be like this. Like, I'm not going to name names, but we know who said this. The only way the Acolyte is going to be good is if Plagueis shows up. And I'm like, what?
I kind of never want to see Plagueis on screen at this point. I feel like that's one of the mystery boxes that we shouldn't open, like with Yoda's origin, right? Like, we don't know what planet he's from, and we're never supposed to. Even the name of his species is supposed to be a secret. I think it's in the contract. A friend of mine just told me that's like it was written into the contract when Disney's bought Lucasfilm. Yeah. George Lucas had a couple of stipulations, and that was one of them. Just, you don't ever get to tell anyone where Yoda's from. And I like that. I like that there's some mystery that's reserved in the universe.
I think George Lucas, when he sold the IP, realized how much power he himself had. And we were talking about this in the pre-show.
He was just flexing at the end.
Yeah. He's like, we were talking about the whimsy of George Lucas. Like, literally, he canonized Stu John on The Daily Show with Jon Stewart. And that was the power he held. And when he sold it, he was like, I don't think I want anybody like going on to a talk show and being like, Yoda is from Odoi. And it's a good protection to have. Like, you don't want any single person in Lucasfilm going on and canonizing Yoda's home planet and his species. Like, oh yeah, there were a whole bunch of frogs out there, and you know, just kind of like minimizing the mystique around that one individual. And he did the same thing for Anakin's origins as well.
Right. Yeah, that was the other piece that they wrote in. That's right. But I mean, I guess on the topic that you're discussing, I mean, as far as like bringing Plagueis in as a prerequisite, you know, that's kind of.
I think it's a way to set yourself up
to be unhappy.
I think where I land on that is we need a Sith, because the show was pitched as an expansion on Sith ideology, and I feel like going into, and we'll discuss this more when we get into the Acolyte, but I feel like going into the final kind of the final countdown of this show, there's gotta be a Sith somewhere behind the scenes being like, this was all for naught. This was my experiment and it has failed, and he needs to kill everybody. And
okay, but how are you going to feel if that doesn't happen?
The world is over, and
Star Wars is trash now.
Star Wars will be dead. I will be making a series over the next 10 years over how Star Wars is dead every year.
Making my entire personality.
The Wolf of Loath Street says the only time I want to see Plagueis is for a Palpatine movie, but I don't even know if I want that. Just how I feel. Isaiah in my chat says the Plagueis novel is so good that I don't know if I'd want to see another interpretation of it, and that is one of my big things, because I keep hearing like, oh, this book was so good, we need to just make this a movie. And
you're not going to like that.
You have the book. Let the book be the book. Make a movie that's like, I don't know, fleshes out one of the characters in it or something like that. But like, I think it's weird to spend time on content that you already have.
Yeah.
Right. It's going to be, there's going to be discrepancies. There's going to be some kind of little tweak that they make that you're going to be furious about.
Hello, Greg.
And then you're going to have to argue with somebody about which one's canon. Like, just leave it. Make another story with those characters, or, you know, they're doing meanwhile. You know, I like what they're doing with kind of getting back into the Wheel of Time, but they're doing a lot of, here's what happened in the book, but there's all this stuff that we kind of know happened elsewhere off the page, and we'll get an episode about that. So I really like that approach of just like, yeah, you've still got your books. You'll always have your books. Let's see some more content. Let's make new content for the screen.
I mean, the people that have the the best job of it right now, and I only know this kind of because I haven't actually read the book, but House of the Dragon, there's a lot of things or events in the show that aren't actually told. Like, you're told what is happened from the perspective of someone, and so when you can see it, all they have to do is hit the broad strokes, but they can still tell their own narrative. But I think a lot of people are still mad at certain things, though.
They'll always be mad about something.
Oh yeah, I mean Witcher for another example. When they talk about how I guess the second season, they did things out of continuity with the book, but if you read the book, it's not in continuity with anything. It is a string of stories that The Witcher tells. Like,
that's like the framing device for the book itself is it's already just sort of hearsay.
There's no linear continuity to the stories that are being told in The Last Wish. It is literally just a bunch of campfire stories about The Witcher and what he goes through. So when he visits his old friend that is the boar with Ciri, that doesn't happen at any given point in chronology. It's just one of the stories in The Last Wish, and people are like, well, this didn't happen at this time. They didn't say it happened at any time. Like, they literally just visited it out of chronology in the show.
I think that's probably one of the challenging things about telling stories on screen in the first place, is just getting that concept across, because so many viewers don't get that these stories are stories. They're not literal interpretations. It's not a documentary. We're not filming this stuff as it goes. It's pretend. I mean, I think they get that it's pretend, but there's something about our brains being tricked by seeing it actually happen in front of us, where we're like, okay, well, this is canon. So canon means it actually happened this way. but you can have a canon of stories that are all legitimately, part of the same, canon.
You know who does that really well is Dr. Afra in her audio drama. So she has an audio drama, and if you listen to it, this is her dictating a log, telling the broad strokes of the story from the Vader 2015 run, and some additional side stories that was like her part during those times. And it's actually really well done, because she's like dictating this to a droid or to something, and then there'll be times where she's like, wait, no, erase that last part, and then we'll re-record and make herself sound better than she actually was in that part. Or like, they play around with that bad narrator, because that's a core aspect of her character. But one thing, so I have a lot of people in my chat, and they're doing a lot of speculation because in the Acolyte, because we've had something happen 3 times, and then we already mentioned, that's why I wanted to bring it up. Once in each of the last 3 episodes, we've heard the Kylo Ren theme song played back in some way, shape, or form, and I'm curious, what the hell?
Right? Yeah, that was I didn't catch it my first viewing, and I saw a bunch of people make videos about it, and I was like, wow, okay, that's something, right? It's probably going to tie into the Knights of Ren, or how maybe Snoke, the way that Snoke trained Ben Solo, or something like that. So I don't have a lot of really specific theories on it, but yeah, I'm really excited to find out what that's about, if anything. Or is it just a musical theme that they pulled and decided, let's use this? I don't know sometimes.
I did see a take on X that was rather profound. And
From who?
I don't remember who it was from. It was in passing, but it was within our circle for sure. I wish I could give them credit. I don't remember when I saw it, but I was like, that's actually a pretty good take. They were describing the theme as being a motif for Padawans who have been failed by their master, and it could not. It could be a Knights of Ren thing, but it could also be like, Ben Solo's theme for being failed by Luke Skywalker, and then Torben being failed by his master. When it's played with the Kalnaka fight, and it's played when Chimere kneels before Osha, who has been failed by her master. So there's a lot of connective threads there that support that. I mean, but the one that I personally land on is, we're going to find out that Chimere, at the end of the day, wanted to splinter off from the Sith and do his own thing and start what has been described as centuries of marauding, right? Because he doesn't really follow the ideology. He knows it. So that means he used to be a Padawan of Venestra and got taken by a Sith and taught that ideology to some degree, and then he was like, nah, I'm not clicking with this. So he wants to maraud and use his powers freely, whenever he wants, and that's where I land on it. But I do like that failed master motif.
That's interesting.
That fits. I don't hate that.
I mean, maybe he
what
learned
is 10 years deal with not liking rules but making May kill without a weapon? What kind of hypocrite?
I was I was but by the way, I feel like the show has excellent writing. I don't think it's executed perfectly. I think there's quite a few times where the acting falls flat and stuff like that. But the writing, I don't think people know that word.
I feel like I can't even entertain the idea that it's a poorly written show with a poorly written narrative structure without seeing the whole show. I mean, it's not over yet. There's questions that are left unanswered. There's things that we won't know until we've seen the finale. And so when people complain about, they don't understand Star Wars and, they're painting the Jedi out to be bad guys. And look at that. We just saw a whole episode from the Jedi's perspective, and it looks
and they are
a little
not
bit
the bad
more
guys.
understanding.
They cause problems.
So each of them. Okay, are we getting into this yet? Is it time?
I think it's time.
I think it's time. Well, just real quick. One last thing is I want to say. I think it's pretty.
Please.
So I think it is established now that Chimere is a Sith, even though he used the words "you might call me Sith." But again, we don't know at what level that means. We don't know. Maybe he just did Sith training online at Khan Academy. I don't know if he has like a
Skillshare
University. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know if it was actually confirmed though. The question posed to Leslie in that interview was, "Is he truly a Sith?" And she never alluded to any confirmation. She said,
"So
we will find out."
The way she said it verbally leads me to believe that is her natural take, with how casually it was mentioned. So for anyone, I was told I can talk about it, which I actually did a really stupid thing. But I was invited to an Acolyte roundtable on Thursday morning, and it was like a 30-minute conversation with certain people to talk, to ask questions with Leslie Headland, and then. So I was in email correspondence and stuff like that. I wrote and I sent in my questions, and then the invite didn't work, and then they didn't respond. So I didn't actually join it, but then she sent me the audio afterwards. So it was interesting. It was like Baysal Wendy was there, Alex from Star Wars Explained was there, Eric Voss was there, and Josh Maysal Windu was part of it as well. But in it, she does casually refer to him as a Sith, in a way that leads me to believe that that's
currently.
But It's true. It could be. Could be. I can't say
Is he a Sith?
that's
He a
canon or not,
Sith?
but
Yeah, that's what I'm landing on, is that he was a Sith.
if he goes to Exegol, will his sign-in badge work? I don't know.
No.
Yeah, from what we've gotten from him so far, I'm getting the sense that he we know he was a Jedi Padawan, so that's something. We know that he understands the dark side, and that the Jedi would call him Sith. But again, from his Jedi training, he might know that. But yeah, I think he learned from Coral. I'm starting to feel like I'm in this. He maybe learned something of the dark side from Coral, because she seemed to have survived. We don't know exactly what happened to Mother Coral, right? And I'm seeing a lot of speculation that she's his master. But is it Sith ideology, or are they saying like forget Jedi, forget Sith, we're doing our own thing? So I don't know for sure. And I think I like the idea that they would call him Sith, and that like casually we call him Sith because we don't have another name for him. Almost like, we called Grogu Baby Yoda for literally years because we just didn't have anything else to call him because they didn't tell us. So we'll call him a Sith for now.
We also have guidance from the story group saying that we can't take interview answers as canon.
Yeah. No, right. That's true.
I do want to ask one more question that is in reference to an earlier subject before we move straight into the Acolyte episode 7. Mike, would you appreciate a 1-to-1 adaptation of the Silmarillion?
Okay, so I'm going to turn in my nerd card immediately because I have not read the Silmarillion.
I don't blame you.
I don't think you can read it. That's from
people who have. I know it's very dense, and no, it does not sound like it would make a 1-to-1 adaptation. But there's a lot that you could pull from in there to bring a lot of those stories to life. But no, I don't think I want a 1-to-1 adaptation of pretty much anything. There's some of
it's like making a Webster's Dictionary movie.
Yeah. It is a textbook. I imagine it would play out as 4 hours of The Irishman, but the same 3 scenes over and over again. But it is rough. But we can move on to Acolyte episode 7 because Mike's been dying to discuss this doozy of an episode that has thrown
Last Jedi Light, I call it.
It's thrown the fandom into a tizzy because they don't like that the Jedi were unreasonable. The Jedi are supposed to be perfect.
Justice for Indara, flawless. By the way.
Yeah, I'm wondering what Indara did wrong. I'm digging for it. I think I made a video and I said she probably should have pulled everybody off planet early on, and then I've seen a lot of speculation that she didn't really talk to the council at all. So that because that happened off screen. But so yeah, she did come out very favorable in that episode for sure.
I mean, even if she didn't talk to the council, she still came out of that with the right move.
Yeah,
which is don't interfere.
Back
don't
off,
separate them.
It's the Mace Windu effect. It's the if with hindsight being 2020, there are things you could have done in the moment to prevent this thing from happening, but obviously
how would you know that
no
at
way
the
you
time?
can know that.
Yeah.
And that's again another problem with the fandom, judging these stories with the notion that the characters within them are operating on the same information that we are operating on. Like, Soul should know that they're just training the children and they're not really harming them. He should definitely know that because he's had access to what we've seen within the Coven.
No, they showed us exactly what he saw. That's what I liked about that episode, is that they showed us exactly what he knows, and based on what he knows, I can kind of see why he thinks they might be in danger. Still Still definitely a little eager to,
It's a little
dive in
premature.
more.
I mean, in that short time he was watching, she was effectively attacking the children. Whether or not he is aware that it is a demonstration, or he can hear all of it, because stage whispers are for us and it's not for the characters, right?
Yeah, that's a good point too. Hadn't considered that maybe he didn't hear, like that was almost just, that could have been just for tracking purposes, so the audience knows which part of the conversation we're in. That we had already heard that whole conversation, but just a reference. Yeah, that's good. I think he could hear some of it. It seemed like he could hear. They brought the audio down enough to where it we heard some snippets, and I think he heard, defend yourself. I expect better from you, your enemies. So and Dara comes in saying, we think you're training children. So I do think he got the gist that was some form of training, but he also said that they're not treating them like children. He thinks they're being too rough on them for their age, I think. And that's the big question for me still is, what are they training them for? Like, what's going on with this ritual? Why do they need these girls so badly that they can't let them leave? If the Osha wanted to go with the Jedi, even Anastasia was going to let her go with the Jedi. So why is that a problem for the rest of the coven? What's so important about this ritual? And I've seen some theories, but I'd love to hear what you guys think.
It brings me to a small little strand of a connection that I'm making to Palpatine. Whenever he
strand.
Whenever he tried to strand cast himself and do an essence transfer, he could not contain his essence. It was too powerful, and that would make subsequent strand casts crumble, and it would make them all failures. So when we think about Anastasia trying to train the children to know this stuff and to be able to employ the thread the way she can, it goes into our original theory from a reaction where they're training them and ascending them to be able to accept Mother Anastasia as the leader into their bodies, and they're using them as another vessel to perpetuate the leader, and they're making sure that the children can take the power that they're transferring into them. Otherwise, the new body is like kind of useless.
Yeah. So, and then what happens to the girls? That's kind of the theory I'm operating on too. I've heard something similar, and that they're going to combine the two, because they're the same person. So like there's some kind of ritual to make them one. So a symbol on the left temple, symbol on the right temple, and then they combine, and then it's in the middle, like Anastasia's, right? But in either case, what happens to the girls? Like, what happens to their consciousness once that happens? They don't exist anymore. They're effectively.
Well, one thing that's interesting in the Darth Bane books is that when you attempt essence transfer, you are lost. So when Bane did essence transfer, attempted it on Xana, his apprentice, from the outside, it looked like Bane just disappeared, and it was just her lying on the ground, writhing for a hot minute. And so, yeah, I'm curious if that's more or less, if essence transfer is something that these witches were performing, and maybe they're a lost cult stemming from Darth Undeadu, which is where he learned it in the expanded universe. Also, the witches were just wildly powerful, so they probably also could have learned it from the Night Sisters. We know the Night Sisters referred to as the Thread as well, and we saw that in Ahsoka. They kept calling it the Thread of Destiny. But yeah, that's kind of the operation. That's kind of where I am with it, especially after we see what happens to the people who were occupying Kilnaka's mind. Because to me, it seems like one of two things happened. One, they didn't actually die; they were all unconscious when they got kicked out forcibly. Maybe it's it's like in Naruto, where like if you miss shooting your consciousness in, it'll be like 30 minutes before it comes back to your body, and then they all just died in the tower when it collapsed.
Or Matrix theory.
Yeah, but the other possibility I think is more likely is that's their consciousness inside of Kilnaka, and that's what's confusing him. That's what's allowing them to control him, and basically Endara just cut all that off. So all of that was still in them. They lost their connection, to their bodies, where most of their consciousness probably still was. But everything else was still left in Kilnaka, which is why he kept drawing the symbols
Yeah, he had
all
the
over
symbols
the inside
in his
of
little hut.
his hut. I think they drove him crazy.
Yeah.
So
the Matrix.
So if they had stayed in there, so I mean, like, just take that as an example. Is Kilnaka still in there? If the witches don't get pushed out by Endara, if their consciousness stays in there, if it's like a permanent essence transfer, like the kind that Palpatine wants, or the kind that Anastasia is possibly doing to the girls, what happens to the host's consciousness at that point? It's like a legitimate like moral dilemma at that point. Like it's not killing them, but it still doesn't seem right.
Yeah. So again, referring back to the Legends book, the Bane series, is the consciousness fight inside of the host, and then whoever wins stays, and then whoever loses is
just gone, right? Yeah. So the girl. So I mean, and in that sense, then if that is what's going on, then Soul has good instincts, right? He's
bad stuff was going to happen to those kids. Yeah,
right.
I think bad stuff was going to happen to May regardless. Personally,
I think that's confirmed by Anastasia herself when she says, I choose to be a mother in this sense, because everything that alludes to her being a leader and going through with this seems to suggest that it would be harmful to them. And so, like, why would Anastasia argue with letting Osha go and giving her the agency to choose if she didn't think that by going through with this she would essentially lose herself?
Yeah, I mean, for young children, I mean, there's a lot of gray area there when it comes to parenting and making your kids do something they don't want to do. Osha doesn't want to go through with the ascension. That's pretty cut and dry. But if it's something important, your kids don't want to go to school, or they don't want to go to church, or whatever your struggle is with them. Like, sometimes you got to make them go, or even if they don't understand the reasons for it, even if they're not committed to it, sometimes it's just like good parenting. You just got to make your kids do stuff they don't want to do.
Sometimes you flash IHOP in their face, which is how I was raised. Okay,
but
we'll go to church. We'll go pancakes. Like, yeah.
But in that case, Anastasia is the mother making that decision. She knows, however important this is. If it's important enough is it important for Osha's upbringing, or is it important for the Coven's survival? And if there's a discrepancy between those two priorities, it does seem like it's not going to be great for Osha. So yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to pinpoint. Like, he doesn't say anything in particular, but like the facial expressions and like the concern on Soul's face every time he sees Osha on screen and things he sees happening to him, and he says, like, my instincts tell me the girls are in danger. Like, the Force is speaking to him a little. You got to give him some credit for being in tune with the Force.
Yeah.
That something bad's going here. And Dara is really quick to dismiss it as you just want a Padawan. But I don't, and he gets a little flustered, and so that's not what's going on, and you don't know whether to believe him, and we're still not sure.
He turned into Squid Game in that scene. Like, he turned into Squid Game. He's like, that's not what's happening here. But I think it's revealed. I think that's what we're led to believe. I think the biggest thing about the final episode is going to be revealing this, right? Because one of the most important things that we get from Indara's conversation with May is that it could be dangerous, right? How are you guys supposed to lead after this ascension? And May goes, I don't know. So even Indara is probably clued into the fact that it could involve them just being a sacrifice. So I think the idea that people have right now that Soul murdered someone is justifiable. But also, we could see in the very end of the episode that he might have actually saved May in that scenario as well.
Oh, with Anastasia?
Yeah.
Yeah, so one thing that I think a lot of people are missing is that May was also kind of turning to black smoke.
Yeah.
And it's almost a blink and you'll miss it moment. But yeah. She, Anastasia's going all dark smoke, and that's intimidating and scary looking, sure. But I don't think that's why Saul killed her. I think he saw that he would, there was this looks like some kind of dark side attack on this young girl, and he doesn't have all the information, and we still don't have all the information. But I think he reacted kind of on instinct to protect May in that instance. I don't think a lot of people are calling it like, he was just scared of the dark magic and that he didn't understand. To him, I think it looked like an attack on May, or he thought it was Osha at the time even.
Maybe he thought, maybe he plays Overwatch and he thought she was doing a Reaper thing and he was going to go Wraith form and then ult, and she was just going to kill everyone, and so he just reacted to that. No, I do love that a lot of their concern came specifically from the words of May, because and I love how they did this, because just like a kid, she misquotes what her mom says to the Jedi, because I can't remember what May said, but Anastasia says Ascension is about walking through fear. It's about sacrificing a part of yourself. What that comes out as from a kid is like it's about fear, and it's about being a sacrifice. And they're like, oh my god! Like,
anybody that's ever been around small kids, kids will misquote you.
Oh yeah, for sure. And they'll make it more dangerous than it actually sounds. But in this case, I think there's a part of me that feels it would be dangerous for them.
What I'm actually thinking though is that in this ceremony we saw May get her tattoo, and it makes me think of like the Night Sisters, right? We just got Tales of the Jedi. That as soon as Talzin was defeated, what's your name's tattoos left. I think that's part of their ritual to become one of the actual witches. I think that's one of their rituals where they probably take the ichor into themselves, and that kind of begins, because even with the witches of Dathomir, they're not all force sensitive, but they go through this ritual that gives them the ability to do the stuff that they do. Mother Talzin directly says herself, I am not what you would call a natural force wielder. So it could have been something like that as well. But I do think it was dangerous, and I do think they're probably better off. But that's the beauty of it. That's the speculation. And that's why I really have been enjoying the shows, because they give you just enough. And so we have more than the Jedi we're operating under. And we still don't have enough information to truly decide if who was right and who was wrong.
Yeah, I
All
think
we
that's
can say is they were in the
deliberate,
right.
too. I think
Their
that's
hearts were in the
very.
right place.
I think that's very deliberate. They're writing this to the very end. Like we're not going to know what's going on. And even I'm not sure if is a season 2 confirmed. Are we doing a second season of this show, or is this just a limited series?
It hasn't.
Right
been
now, it's just a
confirmed.
limited series.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, then it should be a self-contained. Like if it ends on a cliffhanger, I'm going to be pissed.
She has specifically said that she hates when shows do that. So
That's
she wants
great.
to. She has content in mind for more seasons, but is going to give
But
us
this will be
solid
self-contained.
conclusion.
Yeah, I like that.
And then also to the Wolf of Low Street in my chat, you said you're gonna die on the hill that that they are clones of Mother Anastasia. I'd just like to point out that clones are not the same in the Force. So they may have the same DNA, and we even get that in the very first episode of the Clone Wars when the clones take off their helmet and Yoda talks about how different all of them are in the Force. So them all having the same symbionts is a unique thing that we've never seen before in Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
I'm very curious to see like how that all came about too. I mean, it's not that there's so much whining about Anakin and his origins, and like I can't hear it anymore. but I like that they're doing something similar to that in the universe. Like, no, that's not the only time anything remotely like that has ever happened. And I don't think that. Lucas said that his origins need to be unchanged, but he didn't say that they need to be unique, right?
And I don't see them as anything comparing to them, right? Because if they're suspecting that the life on the planet was created by a virgins in the Force on the planet, right? We see the virgences in the Force usually manifest inside of some type of space butthole. We see the butthole on the top of that tower, right? They were all standing around.
They're all standing, changing over the space butthole. Got it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so if you look at the life on the planet, right, that's older than those girls are. You know what I mean? The girls are not the virgins in the Force. They're speculating that someone used the power of the virgins in order to do whatever created these girls, versus what Qui-Gon speculated with Anakin when he said there was a virgins surrounding this
a person.
boy.
Yeah, centered around a person was a really specific line in The Phantom Menace. Like it was.
Yeah. So it's very different to be like this. That means he is the source. It means like if they got an extension cable and plugged it into Anakin, they might be able to make twins. But like, yeah, they don't have the same origin.
They did use Anakin to make twins.
Yeah,
that's true. That is true.
I think
powerful ones.
I think there's also a lot that is unknown with something that they keep on alluding to, they keep on giving us shots of, and that is the two moons. And I feel like while there might be a virgins on Brendok, the two moons have a lot to do with what's happening. I mean, Indara looking up and then just them looking at the two moons is not just B-roll.
Yeah.
it's a Chekhov's gun, and I feel like something is going to. I feel, you know what? I'm just gonna reach right now. I feel like the Sith are like on those two moons, and they're kind of manipulating things in the virgins to get what they need, and the Coven is, like I've been saying in the beginning, the Coven is there for them to gather data on their experiments. And that's where they factor into all of this.
I have a wild theory that I've always said that I think that hyperspace, the Force, the wellspring of the Force, the world between worlds are all very much intrinsically linked, right? And what if that's like a way for them to draw upon that source of power is during a ritual. Because all right, so we had the great hyperspace disaster in the High Republic.
Yeah.
Right. What if something that happened with that disaster was able to cause
Yes.
divergences to appear? What if it caused one on the planet and one on each of the moons? And when all of those things align and you draw a thread through it, you're able to pull from like the wellspring of the Force or something like that.
That's good. Yeah, no, I was actually thinking, I was wondering, because I only read Light of the Jedi once, and it's a few years ago now, but I know Vernestra Rowe was around at that time, right? Because she's older, she's High Republic era. And she seems like she's hiding something in all of this too. And it struck me that she was around for the hyperspace disaster. She remembers this planet getting wiped out. But does she know something else? You know, like, is there more to this planet than she knows more than she definitely knows more than we know she knows. But like, I feel like it might have something to do with the hyperspace disaster somehow seeding this planet with Force energy and creating that the vergence in the Force there. But
I also
he
think
also has some demons from back then too, right? So I didn't read all of the High Republic stuff, but I've heard that she might be Chimere's old master.
Yeah. They alluded to, it's a small nod to the books, but they alluded to her knowing more than we think she knows. When Mog-Adon was his name? Mog-Adon?
I don't know. I hate his name. I'm sorry.
When Mog says,
or I don't think it fits him.
He says, "Don't
give
you
me
get nauseous?"
Give me a space orc named Mog. Sorry, go ahead.
He says, "Don't you get nauseous in hyperspace?" No, she doesn't.
Oh, right.
She has visions in hyperspace. So the fact that they pointed to her condition in hyperspace tells me that in some way she has had visions of this thing. Either traveling through hyperspace or having a vision traveling to Kofar. The point is she knows something. And she might have gleaned something from the two moons. But one thing is for sure, this is a great mystery. And to kind of jump onto Choco's point about the writing being excellent, I've been avoiding pushing back on that on my videos because a lot of those people just don't have any examples of bad writing. But the fact that we've been sitting here week after week just speculating and theory crafting for hours on end.
Yeah, just what the hell is going on? I haven't. It's rare nowadays that we get like a real what the hell's going on story on screen. Like I don't know.
But the
like
writing.
I would go back to WandaVision. WandaVision was a real good like what the hell is going on here? Explain yourselves. But
it's Mephisto. That fly in the walls, Mephisto. I know.
Oh God.
God.
But here's the thing: a story can be badly written, and you can still say what the hell's going on because obviously the writing's all over the place. But when we're asking the question, what the hell's going on? But we also have threads to latch onto. That means the writing is doing its job. We're looking at certain clues. We're looking at the two moons. We're looking at the dialogue between Indara and May, and speculating on the Ascension's, danger to the twins. And we're looking at writing in the show that is setting up mysteries for us to speculate and theory craft around, and it's the most that I've ever theory crafted in any of the recent shows we've gotten in Star Wars, and that is a testament to its writing. When it comes to opinion, you may not think that the dialogue is tip-top shape, or the story isn't unfolding the way you wanted it to unfold, but in terms of storytelling, it is doing its job. It is giving us things to latch onto while remaining a mystery, and providing us ample fodder to speculate and talk about and discuss week to week. Whereas a show could be so simple that our discussion of it in the following dyad is like, so this is what happened, and anybody else I got anything to say? It's like, and the biggest thing that I want to talk about is the trolley problem in this episode. Like, we know why Soul made that decision, but can we respect it?
Yeah, that moment on the bridge was really, really tough to watch, because I think it made me immediately think of Master Allen. He's done several videos now of how like the Jedi are facing the trolley problem every day. It's just like they just have to go figure out what the right thing is to do and make a decision.
The rightist.
The rightist decision, yeah. It's like actual questions, and it deserves a genuine conversation. And so many fans are really quick to just be like, nope, it was clearly this. It was clearly the wrong thing to do. And I'm like, no, I think he was facing a dilemma. And I like characters facing dilemmas and like having to live with a tough decision, maybe the wrong decision.
It's like, clearly he could have saved both of them. Like, well, no, that's not clear at all. It's like you look at Anakin choking Padme. Clearly, he didn't have to do that. Because something is there that's causing this thing to happen. Whether it's him just being gassed from fighting a Wookiee and Coral.
Yeah.
And climbing a giant mountain that's larger than any human could actually do twice in one. Like, how long was this? This was like one day. He climbed it twice.
And we often say that size doesn't matter in the Force, but there is stamina. There is people who have been doing things all day, and you know, when it comes to stopping these things, you just don't have anything left in you, right? Because the way the Jedi tap into the Force is that it's their ally, and they don't subjugate it and they don't use it. Right, so they have to have something left.
Yeah, it's real easy for Yoda to say size matters not. He's been just chilling in a swamp, getting lots of rest. But yeah, the exertion and also the focus. I mean, it's the whole evening is emotional turmoil for all of them. So like, they're not making the, you know, rational decisions all in the heat of battle. And I think, again, we're real quick to say a Jedi should be able to stay level-headed in the heat of battle. But I think at this point, another distinction I like to make is that Saul at this point is a young knight. He's not a Jedi master at this point in the story. He's not Yoda level enlightened and in control of his facilities. And I think I like getting kind of that, more of that stair step of progression of Jedi, because not every Jedi is a master. Not every Jedi is Yoda. So there is some, I give him some grace for just, he tries to stop both of them from falling, and at a certain point you can kind of see it on his face, like I can't hold both of them. And
yeah.
And that's, I mean, the way that
it's really easy to say, you know, guys, maybe just both of you just back off of the bridge, so I don't have to hold both of these.
I mean,
there was another comment.
The fact that he had to dive and catch her with his actual hands showed enough that he wasn't able to pick her up in the Force in that moment. And then there's another thing that I think gets brushed over in the fandom a lot, and that the Force is not your strength, right? That like it's not. It would be easier to do a big Force push than it would be to do a fine maneuvers or pick something up small. It reminds me of a line in Shadows of the Sith where Luke has to. There's a guy who's kind of like lost his mind, and so Luke has to hold him and restrain him with the Force, and he talks about like he's so powerful in the Force that he's like holding an egg and trying not to break it. It's really easy to pick it up, but like it takes a lot of focus to not hurt it, and I think that could also factor in as well. But also, people make suboptimal moves. That's what happens. That's what people are. Like Darth Maul got so high on his own confidence that he stood there slowly while someone flipped over his head, landed, and then he jumped and did a full 180, landed back on his feet before he was able to do anything.
Didn't we get a retcon into his mind during that time period where he's just like, I can't remember if it's canon or not, but I know somebody said like
it's headcanon.
Darth Maul is like just watching Obi-Wan flip over him and like, no, he's not going to try this. No, he couldn't possibly think he could pull this off. Oh shit, he did it.
There's a lot of people that headcanon try to defend that scene, but it doesn't need defense, right?
No.
That whole entire scene for the audience played out the way it played out, but for them it played out in like a blink of an eye. He flipped over and slashed him, but for the audience's sake, we saw it. Just like
saw the moment stretched out.
Just like the duel with the Masters and Mace Windu and Palpatine, like you read in the novelization that he was like lightning and he was just like killing all of those Masters in a blink of an eye, but we as the audience just see and it just looks kind of ridiculous to us. And to kind of like piggyback off of Choco's notion of people making suboptimal moves, and when you get the comment from people saying, well, I would have just held the twins and pulled them to safety, not taking into account that you are in this moment of you are unstable. You've just murdered someone. In your mind, you've just taken someone's life, and then afterwards we're like, I was gonna let her go, and you're like, ah, crap. So you're unstable.
There's doubt. Yeah.
You've fought a Wookiee Jedi. You fought Coral.
That's gotta take it out of you.
And you've gassed yourself to run to that room. Like, how do you, in that split second, think of the most optimal thing? You see the platforms falling. You're like, oh, knee-jerk reaction. You want to stop it. So when people make those comments, I'm just like, you don't account for everything that is putting his mind in such a fragile place, and then he has to think about the trolley problem after that.
Yeah, and then
I do love one thing though, because it really puts in your mind that when you are making these snap decisions that honestly have the fate of the galaxy in mind, it makes sense why they would want to remove bias from the equation as much as they could, and one of my things is I feel like we look at the Jedi too often as too much of a religion, which it absolutely is, but it's also a vocation, and I've said it before, but when Obi-Wan tells Duchess Satine, had you said the word, I would have left the Jedi Order. I love that, because that's him saying, I'm giving everything to the galaxy, but I'll give it to you if you want. But like, he's not going to half-ass two things. He's going to whole-ass one thing, And so, how the Jedi view their attachments makes sense in the vocational thing of like, this is going to be my whole life, and that's okay. I'll be completely devoted to that. But if you don't want to do it, that's okay too. They don't shame you for leaving. They don't, they're like, okay, that's cool.
Only if you try to come back and join a mission, and they make you wear the stupid poncho and.
Nick Knock on TikTok.
Call you civilian.
Nick Knock on TikTok did say Disney Plus says on this website season finale.
Yeah, we see that a lot of the time too, though. Like, it's an app. Like,
I do think there's a point to be made there, because I think what they're going to do is the same thing they've done with The Mandalorian. They don't announce the new seasons. At the end of season 2, right? They said the Book of Boba Fett, right? At the end of the Book of Boba Fett, Mandalorian season 3. So I think at the end of this, just like in the MCU projects, Thanos will return, and then at the end of this one, it's going to be like Chimera will be back or something. You know what I mean?
Kelnaka is not coming back.
Kelnaka's dead. No, at the end of this, it's going to say Mace Windu's dead.
No, it's okay. Sorry, I just got some interesting real world news.
Hopefully good news.
I think we've been seeing it in the chat.
An attempt was made on Palpatine's life. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, I was trying to figure out what was going on with that before joining, and
I hadn't heard.
Yeah, this isn't a political podcast.
We won't dive into that. It's okay. Keep my politics out of Star Wars.
I will say for posterity, I hope he's okay. But I don't know the details of it. And we won't comment any further on what's going on. But what would you have done, Mike? What would you have done? Would you have chosen?
For this. Sorry.
Insult. Yeah, no, I mean, I really felt for him in that moment, because I mean, afterwards, I start thinking logistically, what could we have done differently, and I think, that's almost like, you get you watch training videos of like, the dog fights, if you're learning how to fight better, like I'm thinking of Top Gun, like they'll go and rewind the tapes, or if you're a martial artist or fencing or whatever, you watch yourself in hindsight and you get like tips, and like you can see, okay, well, I need to do this better next time, but there is no next time. In that moment, you did what you did. So yeah, I would have probably done whatever I could have at the time too. And he had to choose between these two girls, and he picked one. I don't even know if he knows which one he picked, because they're identical, right? He couldn't sense that was May, that Anaseo was doing some dark magic with. He couldn't sense that he called her Osha. He thought that was Osha. And then when they were on the ship together, that was his Padawan. They spent a lot of time together. You would think that he would be able to identify just through his connection to the Force, that this is the twin. But because they're identical down to their connection to the Force, I'm not even sure that Saul knows which one he picked.
He did know. In that moment, May calls out to Osha.
Oh, so verbally he knew. Got it.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. May is like, come back to me, Osha. Like she says it to her, to the person that she chose. So.
Okay, I gotta say goodbye to that headcanon. I gotta delete that real quick. All right. but yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, if I had, these aren't my children, they're two children, one of whom I have a little bit of a connection with, and the other one, all things being equal, I would love to save them both. But if I have to pick, then you're going to live with that decision the rest of your life. You're going to pick the one that you favor, and then you got to live with yourself. So yeah, I mean, what would I do? I would, they would both die while I was trying to decide the right thing to do. Right.
Yeah. yeah, most likely. And then I would have just thrown myself in there afterwards.
Right.
All right. Deuces. So Jedi 83 Joser in my chat says, did Soul intentionally let May fall though? I don't know that you can use the word intentionally there,
I think it's rough. This is the kind of quandary that comes with the trolley problem, because if you choose to save someone, did you intentionally murder the others, or did you intentionally kill them? And it's rough. I mean, like, if you were in a similar scenario where you were holding on to two people on a cliff, and your left arm is weaker because it's not your dominant arm, and they slip and you let them go, does that mean you have saved the one person and killed the other, or were they both in danger and you saved one?
Oh yeah, I mean, they were both going to die if he hadn't done anything. So I mean, I think there's something to that. He allowed one of them to fall when you can make the argument that he could have saved them both if he had, again, if we go back in time and let him do something different based on future knowledge or something, based on input, tips from the audience, then sure, he could have found a way to save them both, but that's not what happened, and that would be really convenient writing, right?
If it were an anime, that time would have frozen, and there would have been a third omniscient being who visited upon Soul and was like, "Oh, what a moral quandary. What are you going to choose?" And Soul's like, "Who are you?" "You would call me Sith." I'm just kidding. Corellia Coffee Works Haley says in the chat, "To be honest, Torben's choice makes so much sense. Goodbye world, many regrets." Yeah,
Torben really stepped in it in this one. I mean, he and then I was wondering what he specifically had done, when he took the poison, so he knew he definitely had something on his conscience, but this tracks for that. I mean, he definitely created a really ugly situation.
That's why Choco is Torben superfan.
Am I? Okay. No, I just...
Yeah, go ahead.
I have that on your label.
One of the things that I've been seeing is I've been seeing some weird takes about Torben, and I just wanted to say, and I mentioned this in my video, that I appreciated what he is and what he represents in the story. I honestly feel like they picked someone that looked like they could be related to the Skywalker boys to show someone who is impetuous in this situation, and how often those boys run off and do something because they're itching for adventure. And they barely succeed. They barely succeed each time. And what does the other side look like? What happens if they didn't succeed?
Yeah, if it didn't work out for you.
Things, and how many echoing ramifications would that be? And then I've heard well, how did he become a master if he was just this impatient person? And you're that was 16 years later. But more than that, I can absolutely imagine someone who, if their impatience led to this disaster, how much trauma that would be, how his friend the Wookiee's mind got taken over, and all, he probably has things with that. He probably sees Soul with his Padawan, knowing every time he sees her, he knows what he did and all this stuff. And I can imagine him being I'm going to be the most patient person of all time because of what happened.
Yeah, you go the other way because of what it cost you. It cost others, honestly.
And you went deep the other way. I don't have that kind of patience to sit there for 10 years and not speak. Actually, I might be able to do it.
The 13th Doctor says, "I don't know how old Torben was, but that receding hairline was an atrocity."
I would have liked an old casting for him. That was the funniest thing.
That's something
old
that I
man
will
is a
concede.
child.
But yeah, like when the writing is bad, you don't have any of these moral quandaries. You know, so like thinking like Nick Knock says in TikTok, I don't think he unalived May. He just made a choice. Was it the right one? We will see. I don't think there's a right choice. I think there was a right choice for him. I think, you know, with all things that have to do with morality, it is a deeply personal choice to make. And it's not something that is universally the correct choice, because obviously one person would have died had we not known that May survived. You know, the threads there that exist is that both of them would have died. And in this case, only one of them died because they survived. But it's such a tough subject.
Well,
It also adds to the despair in Soul's face when he's like, I saw her die. And you're like, he's probably relived that a lot.
many
in his
times,
mind.
yeah.
Yeah,
the
was stressed, yes.
That's because Indara was like, I'm going to die surrounded by the world's biggest idiots.
Can I just say, I am enjoying a lot of the apologism videos that I'm seeing. Like, Indara, we didn't deserve you. It's like,
Sorry, Indara.
And she's the first person to get killed for it.
yeah.
Well, and that also does make me wonder more. Again, she's got more story to tell. She knew if she spoke with the council. I think we learn from this episode that they're there for research purposes, but why them and why that planet? And again, does Vernestra know something is there besides what she's told this team about? Does Indara know more than the rest of the team? I'm still kind of curious about that. But for on face value, she's poor Indara. It's good. All these boys,
the sentiment.
stupid boys.
I've seen the sentiment that Indara then lets go of all of her moral high ground in the cover-up, but I don't share that sentiment because
Not at all.
Because this is the aftermath of it, right? And so you're thinking about the welfare of Osha. You're not saying, "Oh, we need to cover this up because this looks bad for the Jedi." You're saying we need to keep this from Osha because she just lost everything, and you don't want to wake her up and be like, "By the way, Soul killed your mom. Soul also chose to save you. So here's a platter of survivor's guilt." And
yeah,
also
there was no good would have come from coming clean. You know, the only good that would have come of telling the truth at that point was to be ease Soul's conscience, and that's for his benefit. That's not for hers.
So now we think about
what did you well, I mean, first I do agree with the decision, although I feel like I mean, Osha decided to leave the Jedi 6 years earlier, and I think that's the point when he should come clean, you know.
Yeah,
like she's out of the nest. She can handle things on her own now. If it's deemed she needs to know this, then she can absolutely tell her. But I'm no longer responsible for that. So that's where I am with it. And then I also wanted to bring up something I have seen the complaints about, and that's Kilnaka with a metal detector.
Oh, Jesus.
it's a something detector. I don't know what it is, but he needs it, right?
The Jedi are putting moss in Tupperware. Like, what are we? What are we complaining about?
Here's what I have to say about it. At Star Wars Celebration each year, there is an event. It's called the Running of the Wilbur Hoods. And if you know, you know. Yeah. But in Empire Strikes Back, there's a random guy in the background, and he has an ice cream maker as he runs across the screen. And so everyone went out and they bought that model ice cream maker, and they dressed like him, and they have an event where everyone doing that just goes on a run together, and it's hilarious, and it's funny. It doesn't ruin the movie. I would never say, "Oh, Empire sucks," because they have an ice cream maker. Why is there an ice cream maker on Cloud City? I think it's a really.
It was an ice cream maker until an insider said it was a Camtono.
Exactly.
So
that's
there's going to be a data bank entry in the next couple of days where Kalnaka was holding a Virgin scanner. I don't know.
Midi-chlorian counter. I don't know. I figured it was related. Like suspension of disbelief, guys. Sorry. Like that didn't remotely bother me.
And this is
and Melinda, yes. I mean, I was taken out of Star Wars completely when Qui-Gon started talking into a Lady Schick razor. Like they were like, "Oh, I know what that is." Whatever.
But this is the problem that I have with the fandom, even as a whole, is that if you are unable to engage with the contents intellectually, you find something that is intellectually dishonest to engage with, and you're like, I can't comprehend this mystery because they just showed episode 3 again, but with new angles. So there's a metal detector. I'm going to complain about the metal detector.
Yeah, episode 3, but with new angles is like exactly what I wanted at some point. I was like, we better be going back to that planet and revisiting those events at some point, because there was a lot of unanswered questions with episode 3. So yeah, I mean, and that is good storytelling. That is good writing. You show things from different points of view, and especially like in Star Wars, it's like quintessential Star Wars, from a certain point of view. The truths we cling to depend on our own point of view. That's original trilogy lore. That's not Disney stuff that they've added in. That's Lucas to the core.
No.
And
Corellia Cofferworks says having Kalnaka be killed by Chimere instead of May, as his mind was taken over, rather than making his own decision to impact Brendock. I think there is also a reason for the order in which people were killed, because Indara did recognize May. What are you doing here? And so there's a level of knowledge.
What are you doing here?
What are you doing here?
Get back on the 5 and get off of La Brea. I think there's a level of knowledge that comes with the order with which they were killed. And Indara obviously knew something more from talking to May in that short little question and answer session about the Ascension. But she also covered it up, right?
Yeah.
Kalnaka probably has the witches trapped inside of him, and he probably has a lot more knowledge than he's letting on, and so he's killed next.
He didn't let anything on. We don't know anything about Kalnaka. It drives me nuts.
All we know is he was innocent.
He was
a
well.
baby
What?
boy.
He was the goodest boy.
Okay. I actually have. There's a line I was rewatching earlier today. There's a line when Saul first breaks off to go and goes and finds May and Osha for the first time. So right before that, him and Indara and Kalnaka are in the woods talking. Kalnaka says some Shuriwook, and Indara says, "Oh, okay. Well, then we'll split up." So it was Kalnaka's fault that Saul saw May in the woods in the first place.
Yeah,
so
you know what?
Kalnaka's not completely blameless here either.
All roads lead back to the fur, This is why furries are dangerous. I'm just kidding.
I got asked by Jedi Joser, do Jedi observe 420? To which I said, Yoda absolutely does.
Probably.
His little walking stick has some medicinal qualities
Oh yeah, that's right.
if you chew on it. So yeah, Yoda's. There's a reason he looked like that as the original puppet version in the Phantom
Yeah,
Menace.
Yoda's just getting high on his stick in the swamp. Like, you know what? Don't try it. Do it.
There's a deleted scene where he first finds Luke, and he's like, "Oh wait, put your weapon. I mean you no harm. Here's a doobie." You know. No, I'm just kidding. But
Yeah, that wasn't an act. He was just
First
tripping
we gotta
balls
eat.
at that moment. He had to wait until he.
so as we look forward to the finale, how does Soul approach this situation with May in restraints and saying, obviously to a captive audience, going to listen to everything I tell you? It was a horrible Soul impression, but
I was like, you sounded like an old Russian lady.
I know I'm going to tell you everything, and you will listen. What is he? How does he do this?
Yeah,
Is there bedside manner to this?
I think we're meant to understand that episode 7 is something akin to Saul telling May what happened from their point of view. So I think we're gonna probably end up coming back to May and Saul on the ship with her reaction to that episode, basically, with more information now, and still probably real pissed. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
Where does our flashback come from, metaphorically and metaphysically? Does it come from Osha putting on the mask, or does it come from Soul putting May down in restraints and being like, I'm going to tell you everything?
yeah.
I think it's both. Personally, I think both of those happen simultaneously as a way for us to understand that this is the telling of what happened. So it's Osha seeing her actual memories. At the same time, it's Saul honestly expressing what he
That would be
recalls.
interesting. I don't know. I don't know if Osha factors into the flashback that we just saw. I mean, that hadn't occurred to me. It could be, but I mean, just in terms of just like the story beats that we're getting, we left
I'm
off.
not suggesting
with
that
Osha.
it's like part of Osha's perspective, but rather like the narrative cue for going into the flashback was like the implication that putting on the mask is now going to be like a different point of view, not from Osha's, but just like meta
Maybe.
wise.
I also think there's so much going on in this show. Like I forgot that was the end credits, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was the end of episode.
That was
6.
the end credits. I thought the end credits was you're going to listen to everything I had to say. It cuts to black, but then you're right. It cuts
They
to
did that, and then that's when Choco
Yeah.
dropped his head.
Man.
And then they're like, "But wait, there's more."
Wait, there's
So,
more.
are we going to get him explaining his side, or is it going to go from the flashback to episode 8, where he's like,
And that's what happened.
And May's like, I can't move.
Yeah, I think if it'll be pretty telling whether Saul lets her out after that. I think I feel like the right thing to do for a good Jedi Master and everything would be, here's what happened. I've said my piece. Now you're free to roam about the cabin. Just almost in good faith.
The seatbelt sign has been turned off.
Yeah, please be in an upright position. This is insane.
Yeah.
No, I think you'll be like, all I want is to get your sister back, and I know that's what you want as well. I'm gonna let you up off this table. Let's go save her, and then you could do whatever you want at that point. We'll let the chips lie there, but for now, we have to save your sister.
Yeah, that feels about right. I mean, I'm trying not to get too into the weeds about like guessing exactly what we're gonna get, but yeah, I think it'll be something along the lines of, you know, here's the truth. Will you come help me save your sister? Will you come help me stop this Sith Lord or not Sith Lord or whoever Chimera is? We're still
We're still
on the edge of our seats, really.
the
Let's be
waters are
honest.
still muddy, yes.
And that's a testament to this is the penultimate episode, and we're not coming into it with full knowledge of what is going to happen, right? We still have the mystery of the mystery show. I mean, I think they've just done an excellent job of giving us what we need and introducing a new mystery over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And so that now we have a little tiny Russian doll in the middle that we're gonna finally get to open.
Which is going to be another
Hopefully
Russian
there's not
doll.
Nice Leslie Headland nod there.
Brian Fantastic says, I wish I was caught up so I could discuss this with you guys. Catch up, please.
Yeah, you should. Brian Fantastic is fantastic. It is.
He is fantastic. Hey, Brian.
Check him out.
KG says he has no reason to trust her, though. Does he need to trust her? Or does he all he has to do is trust that she wants to save her sister?
Yeah, she already had turned from this path of vengeance, right? You know, she already, you know, she might still want to kill Saul, but she doesn't feel like she owes it to anyone now. She's already kind of come to the conclusion that she just wants to get her sister back. So I'm curious how that plays out now when she has some new information about what happened that night. But you know, I suspect, you know, they've already thrown down a few times. I think we're going to see some action, but I'm hoping for like a really healthy mix of action and exposition in this next episode. Because I almost feel overwhelmed with how much lightsaber fights we've gotten. Like, I can't believe I'm saying that, but like, there's been so much lightsabering.
Yeah.
I mean, but are we going to get
lightsaber heavy finale? That I'm kind of okay with it. Sorry?
Are we going to get a Vernestra versus the stranger?
Oof.
We might.
I do want to see more of that whip.
We might. I mean, I feel like when they said we tried to do a not one up. They said that they wanted to do better than the Duel of the Fates duel. And I feel like that's not the stranger fighting all of the red shirts. Or even...
Although I think I do like that fight better than Duel of Fates personally, but that's just me.
It's real good. I mean, I'm gonna
I
go watch
just
it
feel like
right
seeing
now.
the
I gotta
light
go,
whip
guys.
in
I'm gonna watch
action.
it again.
I feel like seeing the light whip in action might trump the Duel of the Fates just like unequivocally.
Hey, you know, I used to play Ivy.
Proper duel would be cool. Just two of them, just a one-on-one.
Take it easy, hard fear. I do want to ask.
I played Soul Calibur. I played Ivy. Like I've seen some of it, and it's spectacular.
I do want to ask because I feel like I might be the only one that has come around on this. But do you think that they've done a good job to endear May in the last 2 episodes prior to 7?
Yeah, they have. We get a lot more of why she's in the position she's in. I never quite thought that she was doing anything sinister, even after episode 3. You know, like that did seem like a pretty innocent, like, you know, she's a kid lashing out. You know, I'm going to burn my sister's book. But now, you know, seeing that she was really scared. She didn't expect the fire to sprout up like that. And then after finding out that her sister's alive and deciding, you know what, I don't need to go kill Kanaka. That's your problem, man. She definitely, you know, you don't see a lot of that. You don't see a lot of the villain getting new information and then being like, oh, well, that changes everything, actually.
And she really had And I keep pointing to this scene, but she really had an adorable ass scene with Basil and Pip. When Basil came in and did the and the dance, and then she was like, "Oh, what's going on?" And then Basil went to hump her leg. I don't know what he was doing, but attacked her. And then she like started screaming, and then Pip sprayed some like oil into her face, and she screamed. I thought that was hugely adorable, and it was kind of there purposefully to endear me or endear the audience to May, kind of preparing us for the fact that May might come out of this finale the good person.
Yeah, with especially with Osha kind of turning not dark but sympathetic towards Chimere, it seems like, or at least, you know, entertaining his point of view. We'll see. I mean, like, what's she gonna see in that helmet? Maybe she is gonna see what happens that night. That would be interesting, because you're right. There is something to that order of events. Like, we see it cut to Saul saying we're gonna talk, and you would think that the next beat would be the flashback, but you're right. It cuts to the scene with Osha with the helmet and everything, and I do have to wonder what's she gonna see in there, right? Like, it's not nothing.
What she takes with her.
Yeah.
So I'm calling that the reason May had to kill a Jedi without using a weapon was to see if she was strong enough in the Force to do so. And if she was strong enough in the Force to do so, then she would be a suitable vessel for whomever the Sith Lord is. And in this final episode, the stranger is going to jump into her body and run off. I don't know. I'm spitballing here. I can see two things going on where I don't think Soul is making out of this alive. I think he's done so. But, you know, what if that is what's happening? What if the stranger, that is not his original body? What if that is someone like Coral? What if that is the Sith Lord? What if someone jumped and then was Coral, and then became the stranger, and then is trying to, you know, get these girls to be powerful enough to accept them, you know, as a new and younger body, you know? And this, like, the way this has been framed does remind me of a brief storyline on, I mentioned this last week, on what's it called? The Isaac Asimov
Foundation.
So on the Foundation. In the Foundation, there was a storyline of someone that could take over someone's body. They could read people's minds and stuff like that. And so they had everyone under control. They could create illusions and stuff. It felt kind of similar. But as always,
weird too.
We speculate responsibly. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. I like to shoot for the moon and then bet a spicy challenge on it, and then die as I eat whatever spicy thing I challenge myself when I'm inevitably wrong.
Every time you remind me of that episode, all I can think about is her making out with what she thinks is I forgot their names now.
Oh yeah,
and it's
that
not him.
That was not it. Yeah, for sure.
I'm gonna dive into Foundation now. It sounds like, too.
Definitely Foundation.
Great.
Definitely Silo.
I've heard
Silo, if you like mystery, it's equally mysterious. But I really like Texan Downloads. I don't know if this is a reach or a grasp, but he says Osha and May rejoin into one. Chimere bows as his old master has returned. The ultimate betrayal for Soul. Osha was the Sith master the whole time. And what I'm hoping he means by this is that the original consciousness that was split was the Sith Lord.
Hmm.
And Osha and May merge into that split consciousness, and then Chimere's like, "You've returned."
Yeah,
Welcome back, Tenebris.
yeah, that could be what we're looking at. I'm honestly, I'm hoping it's not too Sith heavy. I'm actually really enjoying more Force cultures in
Yeah.
the universe. So, there's the line that, Chimera about, some would call me a Sith because, and like, it almost, there's an unspoken, because Jedi only see Jedi and Sith, so, but we know that they know about the Night Sisters. There's this new coven that we haven't heard of. Maybe they're kind of Night Sister adjacent, but still new. Like, this is a new villain, and maybe it kind of like leads into some of the Sith lore that we get from later on. With Plagueis and Palpatine maybe heard about this. Maybe they learn something about this, but like, I don't know that I want it to be a Sith pulling the strings from the shadows. But if it is, I'm not gonna be a whiny bitch about it.
Well, here's the thing: Tenebris is only canon in name, due to a Sith trooper squadron in The Rise of Skywalker, and we've only seen Plagueis depicted in a shadowy robe in Secrets of the Sith. Tenebris could theoretically be woke.
No.
A woman. Or femme presenting. Who knows? I just know I don't... If there's one thing that I'm going to put my foot down on, is I really don't want a Bith Sith Lord.
It would look kind of stupid. They have a stupid head, so I get it.
Like, you think about how the modal nodes look, and you're like, them some Sith Lords right there. All right, so we have an interesting finale to look forward to. Again, the show Bith Lord. The show has proven to provide us with ample story to kind of whirlwind about, and speculate on, and theory craft on. And it has been largely successful in creating conversation amongst those who would intellectually and honestly engage with the contents. So we'll see if Mike will either get mad that it's a Sith Lord that's been pulling the strings, or if that other side of the fandom will get mad that the Sith Lord's a woman. All possibilities. But now we move on to any hot takes. Do you guys have any hot takes? Any hot takes in the chat? Let us know.
So, I mean, I will say, and I think it'll probably, I might be in hot water for this one, but there's a lot of sentiment around, Anakin's origins being really special, and, we can't ever have that happen again, and we can't find out that that's already happened before. And I know that's not what's happening in this show, but I actually don't think that Anakin's origins need to be unique, one of a kind, in order for his story to be important still.
Yeah.
It's a long history of the galaxy. There's a lot of room for a lot of prophecies and a lot of the things that the Force can do over the long history of the galaxy. There's going to be another chosen one someday. I'm assuming there have been chosen ones in the past. Maybe a different prophecy, but the Force could create somebody that they need again, and it'll just be a different story for a different galaxy, a different group of people. So yeah, whenever somebody says like, "Oh no, it's just like," what do they call it? trampling on Anakin's legacy or
Ruining
something.
his legacy, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm just like, cool, that's fine. So that's my hot take. I'm like, yeah, cool.
I feel like Anakin Skywalker is mostly responsible for trampling on his own legacy. That's what I would say. Becoming like a space Nazi for like 23 years and like genocide and stuff. That I think that tramples on your legacy more than most other things. But beyond that, the Chosen One prophecy is a prophecy, right? So he's special for fulfilling the prophecy. It's what you do. It's not just how you were born. You have to fulfill the thing in order to be the Chosen One, you know? And so yeah, I'm in full agreement. There's nothing anywhere that states I have a hard time believing anyone who complains about this actually has read the Chosen One prophecy.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen the actual text of it anywhere. It's supposed to be vague, right? Do we have
it's
it?
It's very vague. And it didn't exist until like 2017, 2018.
Right. So pretty recent, and George Lucas didn't write it himself when he wrote A New Hope.
Trying to recall it.
I think it sleeps in an egg, and then
an evil that was once, an evil sleeps in an egg.
The egg will be cracked
once
replenish the sin done to the nameless.
Yeah. And then it just goes into someone born of the Force will
a chosen one born of no father
will achieve balance.
Bring ultimate balance or something. Yeah.
And this is what I've been trying to say for the longest.
So yeah, it could apply to other situations. It can apply to more than just Anakin, and ultimate balance. Is anything ultimately balanced until it's all over, right? I mean, there's going to be.
You're starting to sound like the Witness.
There's going to be no conflict.
I have to look it up now.
No more Star Wars after the Skywalker saga is over, is what it sounds like you're trying to say.
It's fascinating you say that, though, because that was literally the storyline of Destiny 2. That in order to create true peace, the Witness was going to end reality and like put everything in stasis, so everything was perfect in its specific moment.
So
remove entropy.
This was the entire one. Only through sacrifice of many Jedi will the Order cleanse the sin done to the nameless. The danger of the past is not past, but sleeps in an egg. When the egg cracks, it will threaten the galaxy entire. And oftentimes I kind of pinned that one on Palpatine returning. When the Force itself sickens, past and future must split and combine. A chosen one shall come, born of no father, and through him will ultimate balance in the Force be restored.
Split and combine. That actually does sound kind of like what's going on with Osha and May.
Yeah, but don't add any fuel to the fire.
Again, hot take. I like it.
I do think, as I've been saying for years now, as Star Wars evolves in storytelling, as Star Wars moves further and further away from the Skywalker saga, we must then also, as an audience, take our consumption of Star Wars away from the Skywalker saga. Because what makes Anakin special is only truly within the confines of that saga. And when you remove yourself from the saga and from the Skywalker story, there are hundreds of stories and hundreds of people around the galaxy that are going through their own, incidences, conflicts, and confrontations that are, isolated within their own story that has nothing. So like whenever we get a new story and we're like, oh, but this doesn't connect well with it doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
Anakin
Couldn't.
is within these 9 saga films. That's the story of the Skywalker family. And then this story over here, 100 years prior, is just another story and has nothing to do with Anakin. And the further we go back, all the way to James Mangold's Dawn of the Jedi, nothing, nothing will connect to Anakin Skywalker. Nothing will connect to the prequel Jedi. It will be totally new stories, and we need to stop defaulting to that thinking. Right? If the pyramids of Thoyor come and call to one special Jedi in Dawn of the Jedi, and they're like, or special Force sensitives, like, you will be the one to bring everyone together and create a community of Force sensitives. Somebody's gonna be like, well, that doesn't make Anakin any special anymore. Like, what are you talking? Like, this is just the beginning of the Jedi. Like, these stories will
They haven't even
happen.
heard of him yet.
Exactly. You know?
And I think in the other direction too, we're going to get Rey's New Jedi Order. Hopefully that's a long story, a long history that's going to be. I feel like at some point in the history of the galaxy, there's going to come a time when people have not even heard of Darth Vader. They have not even heard of Luke Skywalker anymore. Maybe they've still heard of some of Rey's students by that point. Or maybe Grogu is like, a couple hundred years old, and he's more of a historical figure by then.
He's got his own Geimer stick.
Huh?
He's got his own medicine stick to chew on.
Oh, what's it called again?
A Geimer stick.
The Geimer stick. Yeah, no, I've heard that before too. Yeah, he'll find his own. Yeah. But yeah, just like there's gonna come a time when like just no one's even heard of Anakin Skywalker, and that's still Star Wars, right? It's still, if you got Force, you got the Force, you got some kind of conflict, you got a good guys and bad guys flying ships around.
I mean, that's why I hear people say that about the sequels. Is that they say, "Oh, they didn't even mention Anakin," and you're like, "No, they talked about Vader a lot."
Yeah,
that's the same dude, and I don't know if you know this, but Vader cast a little bit longer of a shadow over the galaxy than Anakin did as a person. The only person that knew him that would think of him as Anakin is Luke, and even when Luke told Leia was like, "Yeah, no, that guy tortured me and blew up my planet, so not my dad. My dad's Bail Organa."
Nick Knox says, "Wait, they're the same." I will say this,
but yeah, I think that covers everything I got.
Everyone's gonna have a different starting point for Star Wars. There are some people who have began their Star Wars journey with The Mandalorian. There are people who will begin their journey with Andor. They'll begin their journey with Ahsoka, and they will have different main characters. They will have different heroes to look up to. Some people in this generation are growing up with young Jedi adventures, and their hero is going to be Bright Star or Nubs. So the further along we evolve in stories and telling the story of Rey's New Jedi Order or the Dawn of the Jedi, or even further out, maybe in the Old Republic, there's going to be different starting points for Star Wars. And I think we as fans need to get comfortable with people having different Star Wars.
There's a lot of room in the fandom for different favorites, and I think there's going to come a time when there's a turd that comes out that I don't like, but that might be somebody's favorite. Mm-hmm. And I try to respect that. I try to keep that in mind every time I make a video, every time I make a take on a new project. That's part of the reason that I tend to stay positive. I'm not getting any checks from Disney, contrary to many.
None of us are.
Opinions. But I try to just keep in mind that even if I have things that I don't care for, like the dialogue isn't almost never great. It's almost a tradition in Star Wars now to have bad dialogue, but I don't focus on that because I don't want to shit all over something that somebody's really enjoying. And if I have like really strong feelings about something, like I'll throw like one video up about things I don't like, but like almost overwhelmingly, it's just there's more Star Wars. I'm really excited to see more Star Wars, and I'm super stoked for whatever comes next, because I think overall it's in good hands. So yeah.
And I think all too often the sentiment of us true Star Wars fans know what's good is often made in made in bad faith, but also made in ignorance, because you can take a bunch of those, you can take 10,000 of all of the fandom menace, put them all in one room and ask them rank your Star Wars movies. There's a good chance a lot of them start with Revenge of the Sith, but the rest of that list is going to still be different amongst that group alone. So whenever they appeal to a majority and they're like, the majority of us feel the same way, like, no, you guys don't. You could put 10 of you in a freaking writer's room and none of you are going to agree on the story beats or who the villain is going to be and who your hero is going to be. And when it comes to people who are like, man, the writing sucks, I could do better. Do better.
Show me.
Do better. I saw a TikTok with Kevin Scott, who was replying to a comment on one of his videos and saying like, these stories are trash. I could do so much better. And I can write books that are 10 times better if only I was given a chance. And Kevin Scott was like, don't wait for a chance. Write it. Create it. Write your book.
Yeah, just gotta do it.
Write a story. See if it's better. You don't need to be published. You know, you can write it on.
You can self-publish, and you know, who knows if it does numbers. Maybe Lucasfilm does give you a call and says, "Come write for us." You know,
yeah,
right.
That stuff does happen.
And that is and that is the ultimate cop out for people. It's like I could write a better Star Wars movie if I was given the chance to write one. It's like just write one and see what happens. But often is the case that they're talking out of their butts, and that's my hot take.
Yeah, I might get in trouble for this one too, but I do have to wrap it up and get.
Oh yeah, we're getting ready to wrap up. Thank you guys to everyone in the YouTube side and on the TikTok side for joining us. 13th Doctor, Nick Knock, Daxon Download, Master James Kenobi, KG, everyone who has joined us and has been there. Thank you for all the roses. Thank you, Nick Knock, for subscribing and for the team bracelets. Thank you to dreadpiratedad, Mike, for joining us on this episode of Dyad and the Force. If you have any final thoughts, and if you would like to plug your socials again, now's the time.
dreadpiratedad on TikTok, and I think we said what we have to say.
And Choco, as a Torben superfan.
Torben is great. His hair is awesome. Listen, his Obi-Wan skills, top notch. I thought he was gonna take off like a prop plane. You know, he was going at it.
Yeah. Thank you once again to everyone for tuning in. This has been a great episode. Always great conversations with everyone who engages with the content intellectually. And we look forward to the next episode, the season finale, hopefully, and we look forward to finding out who the Sith was. Just kidding. That's it. On to the next one.
For light and for life.
We are all Sith Lords pulling the strings behind the coven.
And the real Sith Lord is the friends we made along the way.
Absolutely.
Justice for Andara.